She's Bronya.
And she's Sammy. And this is the Business of Cake Making podcast.
Hello.
Right, so we have a guest today. Oh, look, I've got a frog in my throat already. We have a guest today. We've had this guest on before, but she was so good we had to get her back, and I'm sure we get her back again. So we have Natalie Stanton on.
Yes.
Natalie is an chartered environmental health officer.
I'm so pleased I got you to say it.
Basically, she is a former EHO. So all the people out there that are terrified of getting their EHO inspection, you need to listen to this today.
Yes, she's very good. I love her. And watch her on Instagram. It's just like a video. Gives you a tip. You think, oh, it's like a refresher. It makes you go, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right. So here's the interview.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Business of Cake Making podcast. And today our very, very special guest is Natalie Stanton, who we've had on, is it a couple of times now? Or is it just once? Just once. Oh, I think it's because I watch you all the time on Instagram. So
she's like an old friend.
Yes, yes. So we're going to be talking today about environmental health and everything that Natalie does, because she's got some got some courses that she does. So I'm going to launch straight in and start talking. So level 2 and level 3 are courses that you do in catering, which is a certificate that all home bakers should have. The courses we've done are usually quite imaginative. Unimaginative.
Dull.
Boring. Repetitive as well, yeah. And quite frankly, a little dull. We understand you've done your own course, which results in the correct certificates. We are sure your course is more interesting than most. And can you tell us all about your course and how it's different from the other ones?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one course, which is level 2 food safety and hygiene for catering. So as you guys are probably aware, this is the course that most sort of home baking businesses would have done. So yeah, it's kind of, it's not a legal requirement for businesses to do like an official food hygiene course.
Is it not? Oh,
I was going to say that. I thought it was.
Okay, that's news. Go on.
Yeah, so basically you need to be trained to a level that's in line with whatever you're doing. Okay. And to be honest, the easiest way for a business to demonstrate that is through having the certificate.
Right.
So being able to show the officer certificate, level 2 food safety, for example, because otherwise you're going to have to prove it yourself in some other way.
Yeah.
Like a business could train their staff in-house, but then they'd have to show the whole syllabus, like what they've taught them, have a record of it. So certificate is the easiest way.
Right.
Then, so the level 2 food safety, then my one is entirely online, but it's all video based. So it's taught by myself as an environmental health officer. So I know what EHOs are going to be looking for during an inspection, the things that people need to know. Obviously, it covers the required level 2 syllabus anyway. But hopefully, like the feedback I've had, it's just a lot more interesting. It's more engaging. It's like bite-sized videos, so you don't have to do the whole thing in one go. You can do it in your own time and come back to it. And then I'm literally like next week, I'm launching a level 3 food safety. So level 2 is like food handler level.
Yeah,
and then level 3 is supervisor level. So for a home baking business, they wouldn't have to do level 3. Someone definitely could. Yeah. But to be honest, like EHOs would normally just expect to see a level 2 certificate. But if someone wants to go above and beyond and learn even more, then they absolutely could. And yeah,
what's the difference between how far in depth is level 3 in comparison to level 2?
Level 3 is a lot more detailed. So the level 3 course will take about between 5 and 7 hours to complete.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the exam at the end will be 60 multiple choice questions compared to the level 2 where it's 30 multiple choice questions. So it just goes into things in a lot more detail.
More in depth.
So
So the sort of people who would require the level 3, would that be more like kitchen staff, maybe, if you were working with like at a school or in the kitchens there, or in a catering department? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so basically anyone who's like responsible for supervising food safety. So could be like a head chef, a sous chef, or assistant manager or manager, where they're needing to supervise other food handlers. So other food handlers, say other chefs, for example, could do level 2 food safety, but someone who's then needing to supervise them and train them possibly as well, it would be a good idea if they had level 3.
Right.
So I suppose like maybe cake making businesses that have a few team members.
Yeah.
Then the manager or the owner of that business, it would be a good idea for them to have level 3, because they're going to need to be supervising what the rest of their team are doing in relation to food safety.
So when you've done these courses, because obviously you're a chartered environmental health officer, have you had to get these like approved somewhere, or is it because of you're chartered already that people know that these are going to be good enough? How when people are taking it, how do they know that this is like the thing? So when we're buying any courses, really, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think when people are like looking for a course, there's definitely some like online food safety courses out there that don't cover like kind of everything you need, especially not in detail. So I would say check what the syllabus actually covers, because some of them are just like really vague and they only cover a couple of things. And then so for my courses, they're endorsed by the Institute of Hospitality. Okay. So that means they have like a panel that reviews them, and then they review loads and loads of courses, and a lot of like food safety courses as well. And then they provide feedback. So my level 2 is endorsed by them already. The level 3 is currently being reviewed by them. And I suppose, yeah, the added credibility is because I am an EHO. Like I used to teach level 2 food safety like in-house for clients for like years. Then I've made sure it matches. So the Chartered Institute of Environmental Health has like a level 2 food safety course. So my course matches that syllabus as well. But yeah, I think people just need to check whatever course they go for, just what it covers, and make sure it actually covers sort of all the things they need to know, like personal hygiene, cleaning, like storing food, cooking food, you know, how to do those things safely, pest control, premises and equipment like design, those kind of things. On my website, people would be able to see the syllabus anyway. Okay. And then they can compare it to other courses. They don't have to buy mine.
But yours, I can only imagine yours is actually much, much less dull than some. I mean, I've done, so I think, I can't even remember, it was like Speedy, or I don't know even what it was called, but I was so bored. I think it took about 4 hours and I was ready to just hang up my...
And I think there's a lot there that you can actually just skip through all the answers, and then all the things, and just answer the questions at the end, which I feel defeats the purpose. It's nice to actually do it more in depth, which I think you would do, wouldn't you? And are you in the videos that go with it?
Yeah. So I'm in all of the videos, and the level 3 one, because that's literally was filmed in October. So and I managed to get access to like a few different like commercial kitchens, like food businesses. So like it's literally filmed, the whole thing's like filmed in food businesses. So like real life scenarios, like practical examples, rather than just describing like how to check the temperature of a fridge or how to calibrate a temperature probe. That, you know, I'm actually showing people like physically how to do it. And then like throughout, I'm able to like share some like stories and things from my time as an EHO. I always find that stories just help like bring learning to life a bit more, and just kind of help like the key points like stick as well.
Yeah.
It's better, it makes than
learning
cartoons.
more fun, and you take more on when you're interested in it. More goes in, doesn't it? It's not just sort of like transient knowledge that passes through the brain and out the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. I always find that stories do help people remember things better as well.
Right, so where can we find your course?
So on my website, thesafetyexpert.co.uk, you'll find the level 2 food safety, and level 3 will be there next week.
Well, we are going out on Monday the 18th, so it's that week, is it? It's going out.
Yeah, it will be there then.
How exciting! Very exciting. Right, okay. We put out to our listener if they had any questions.
Listeners.
We've also picked up listeners. Yeah, it just sounds like we've only got one person listening, doesn't it? Just that one person sat down there. And there's a few that we've picked up from things that we're interested in and things that we've seen on Facebook as well. So we're going to put these to you and hopefully help people out there. Because if one person's asked, you can guarantee there's a million more that want to know. Right, you going first, Sammy?
Yeah. So do you have to have a 0 to 5 rating to sell cakes and bakes from a cake shed or from a market stall?
Okay. Great
Can I just say, I don't have one. I'm registered, but no one's come to see me.
So you don't need. So essentially, you need to register as a food business with your local authority. So that is a legal requirement. And ideally, technically, shall we say, you need to register at least 28 days before you plan to start trading. I appreciate and I'm aware that there's businesses out there, or maybe cake makers that are trading, or maybe they've sold a few cakes to friends and family and they haven't realised that they need to register. So I'd just say to anyone in that situation, like, don't panic. Just register straight away. It's completely free to register. It can't be refused. So if you literally just Google food business registration, it will bring up the .gov website, and you just literally put your postcode in and basically complete the form on there. That will register you with your local authority.
That's actually much easier now, isn't it? Because I know in the past you used to go to each individual authority to register, but now it's all going through like a central registration, isn't it?
Yeah, you can do it. I think you can probably still do it on your own council's website. But I'd say it's just easier just to do it on the .gov website. And yeah, it just it then feeds through based on your postcode to your local authority. And I think you should get a confirmation email anyway, or like a confirmation page that you've registered. So I'd just keep a copy of that. And then you've got evidence that you've registered anyway. And to be honest, it could be a while before you hear anything.
Oh,
yeah. I still haven't. So my last check was in 2018 because I've moved twice now. Yeah. So I've informed them every time I've moved, and I've had a couple of emails saying, "Are you still trading? Are you still at this address?" But I'm still waiting.
Yeah, mine's about the same. My last check, so now I'm in Epsom and Ewell. My last check was when I was in Hampshire, and that was 6-7 years ago. But again, I've had regular updates. I mean, I've spoken to my EHO because of my cake shed and because someone complained about my cake shed. So I've spoken to my EHO, but I haven't been inspected. But I have been inspected at work because I work within the same borough, and I'm a manager of a coffee shop. But that's obviously people that are, they can do spot checks, walk in off the street, and it's a different level of risk, I imagine. So yeah, they walked in, and I said to them, I went, "Are you planning on coming and seeing me?" And they was like, "No."
Yeah, I think with like cake makers and stuff, the council will generally see them as being lower risk businesses.
Yeah.
So they won't reprioritise for inspections, especially like most councils have a massive backlog anyway. They're short staffed. So I think as long as people have registered, they've done their bit. Then it's just a case of waiting until the officer contacts you to do your inspection. And as you guys are saying, like it could be a couple of years.
I just think as long as I'm ready for them to walk in the door, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Which I am as well. Yeah. Constantly updating. Yeah, because I always think, what if they just turned up? I know they wouldn't, but just in case.
Just in case.
I'm just going to have to open the door for my dog.
I've got my dog on my lap this time.
I've got my dog down here next to me. I've got 2 dogs, and he always comes in and sleeps next to me when I'm podcasting. He's very sweet.
Yeah, I think last time we spoke, I was like, right, have the dogs out of the room, peace and quiet, and then I think you both had your dogs. So I was like, okay, next time the dogs are allowed.
It's easier.
So I have a
You don't have to fight them then, because they're already here.
I have a friend who comes and walks them, and he actually turned up 15 minutes before we were due to record. So we had it all set out, the treats ready, so he could just sneak them back in.
Bless him. Right, okay. Is it the baker's responsibility to ask if the customer has any allergies, or is it the customer's responsibility to tell us?
So essentially, a business needs to be letting customers know where they can get allergy information from. So, for example, let's say you go to like a restaurant or a cafe, you'll see like a sign on the bottom of the menu saying, please ask about any food allergies or intolerances. So the business needs to be signposting customers to ask. And then when a customer does ask, making sure you have the information to provide them. So I would say in the case of like a cake maker, it's probably best. So for example, if you have a website, have that statement on the website. Please ask about any allergies or intolerances, like when you place your order. Or if you're taking like orders over the phone, or I don't know, through Instagram or something, in that scenario, I would just ask the customer that question, and then make a note of what the customer says. If you've got a record that you asked and the customer said there is no allergies or intolerances, you've got a record.
Right.
And
because
then,
more and more restaurants are actually asking now. Quite often you go to a restaurant and they will say, before they even take an order, is there any allergens? It's like an automatic thing now, isn't it?
Yeah, more and more places are asking, and I think a lot of the time they'll like have an iPad and they'll be logging it on there, so then the business has got a record that the question was asked. I suppose then that's kind of if there was an issue, they've got a record that the customer said no, or if the customer did say yes, then they've got a note of what. I'm
on a cake Facebook group, and this was a question. Someone had put up. I didn't ask my customer if they had an allergy, and then after they took the cake, they said they had an allergy, and there was this kind of quite a heated discussion between half a load of cake makers saying no, you're in the right, and another half saying no, you're in the wrong.
Got to love a Facebook group.
Yes,
yeah. Okay, yeah. I think, to be honest, it's a little.
I agree with what you've said, that you should. It is your responsibility, because the customer could come back and say to you, it's your fault. At the end of the day,
it's just covering yourself, isn't it? I suppose if all else fails, at least you've covered your back on this.
Plus, I think as well, when you give the cake, when I give the cake to the customer, I always make sure there's an allergy sheet, and I always point it out. I say, here's your allergy sheet. I quite often hand it to them or point it to them on the box so that they can see what's inside the cake.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, like that is a really good idea to do. And you can get like the stickers where you've ticked say what the allergens are. So I think really it's probably 2 stages here. One, having the discussion with the customer when they're placing the order, asking that question, and if necessary, having a discussion around what their requirements are, and then providing that allergen information at the point of giving the product to the customer. It's, to be honest, in the Safer Food Better Business Pack, which I think most cake makers will be using.
Yeah.
If they scroll towards the end, like the management section, there is a couple of pages there on managing like allergen requests and so on. I can't remember the exact title, but towards the end under the management section, and it does there talk about like phone orders and things like that. It is a little bit aimed at like takeaways and things, but I think it could still be applicable and useful for cake makers that are taking orders over the phone. So I'd recommend people just refer to that section as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We've asked this one before, but we've had it again, so we're going to ask again.
Everyone always asks this. If I don't have a double sink in my kitchen and there's no way around it because I'm renting, what are my other options?
Okay. So we've got a few options, and I think I may actually have a blog on my website that covers this. I can't remember, but I've definitely got like a post on Instagram somewhere that covers this. But first, so we've got a couple of options. First of all, have we got a utility room or something downstairs, whereby the sink in the utility room could be used for, say, washing equipment during the time that the person is preparing cakes for their business, and then the sink in the kitchen used for hand washing. Second option is setting up like a hand washing station whilst you're preparing cakes for your business. So bowl of warm water on the side, set it up with some liquid hand soap and some paper towels, and then use that for hand washing whilst making cakes. It just mean that you'd need to change the water each time. Third option, cleaning and disinfecting the single sink between uses. So if you need to wash your hands, clean and disinfect it first, wash your hands, clean and disinfect it after, which is a bit of a faff, but that is another way.
Right.
So I would recommend just giving some thought, whoever's asked the question, give some thought to their particular situation, see if any of those options could work. Mm-hmm. And then when the officer contacts them for their inspection, just explain this to the officer on the phone, what they're planning to do. Because the reason I say this is there is some inconsistency between different councils and different officers, what they'll accept.
Right.
So I'm kind of putting these options out there for people to consider, but it is worth checking with your officer who's going to be coming to your inspection, just to make sure they're happy with what you're proposing. Because if not, they may give you another suggestion on the phone. Okay. And the reason I say to do this is when they actually come to do your inspection, they have to score based on what they find on the day. So I'd rather people have had the discussion beforehand so they can put the right thing in place before the actual inspection. And then
because the officer doesn't, people get scared of their EHOs. It's like this fear. I know. I mean, where I work, they have a nursery and they've got Ofsted coming in, and it's like they're trying to find fault, and everyone gets scared. They just want to help, don't they? They don't want to shut your business down. They just want to actually find the best way round helping you, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the officer wants to help, and it isn't going to be the first time that someone's asked that question. Like this is quite common with like home-based businesses. So the officer's going to have been asked that question before. They're going to know what they're going to be happy with. And yeah, they are really willing to help. I think if you can show that you've thought it through and you've come up with some sort of solution, then they can see that you're trying. It's not like they've just turned up and they've asked the question and you've kind of just sat there and said, well, I don't really know. I kind of don't do anything. Just showing that you've sort of taken the initiative.
I kind of do it the opposite way round from what you suggested. I have all my washing up in a bowl, and then I keep the sink clear and I wash my hands as I go, and then when I wash up I clear everything down, and then I do the washing drying up.
So that could be an option as well. Absolutely.
Okay, right. Do we need to keep a traceability log for our home bakery?
Okay, so I would say for home-based businesses, you need to basically have a record of where you've got your ingredients from. So just keep your receipts.
So I mean, I've seen some people and they talk about they've got like an Excel sheet and they put batch numbers in and expiry dates. I didn't even do that when I had my own shop. I just had a stack of receipts, and I think that terrifies me. I'm like, I'm running a cake. Yeah. So, right. That's good. That's good to know.
I think like if you want to do it as like a spreadsheet, you can. But like whenever I've inspected like cake makers, I'll just say, where do you get your food item? Where do you get your ingredients from? And to be honest, a lot of the time they'll just tell me, flour and stuff comes from Tesco's, this comes from here, and I would have just noted it on the inspection form. And to be honest, if it's the usual type of shops, it's not, no alarm bells are going to be ringing anyway. But yeah, if people can just keep the receipts, then if the officer does want to see them, then you've got them. You've got them to show them. Just try and keep them a bit organised rather than just handing the officers like a carrier pack full of receipts. Have them in a folder or, or something.
Yeah. Well,
you know us all so well.
I do, because I do my accounts monthly. I store each month's worth of receipts in a little folder so that I can go, May, and go straight to that. Yeah. Gosh, May, that's such a long time ago.
I know.
Yeah, goodness, that was when it was nice and warm and sunny.
Yeah. So if we were wanting to sell meat-based beef, oh my goodness, that's like a tongue twister. If I wanted to sell meat-based bakes, what do we have to do differently?
Okay. In terms of what do we need to do different? So you're still going to need to register as a food business.
Yeah.
Temperature control could come into it. Mm-hmm. So, because I know some type of cakes don't necessarily need refrigeration unless they've got fresh cream, etc. Meat-based products are going to need refrigeration. So there's that to consider. Also, how let's say you're buying in raw meat to make those products, then we need to think about cross-contamination when you're storing the raw meat products in the fridge. So making sure raw meat products at the bottom and then your other products above. Cooking temperature. So those type of products we're gonna need to make sure that they're thoroughly cooked all the way through. So standard cooking would be 75 degrees centigrade in the core of the product. And it's good practice to record these temperatures. You wouldn't need to record for every single item, or not even necessarily every single batch, but probably a couple per day. I would say the Safer Food Better Business Pack, which a lot of cake makers use. And to be honest, for cake makers, a lot of that pack isn't relevant. But for a business that's doing like meat-based bakery products, actually more of that pack will be relevant. Mm-hmm. So I would say have a really good read through that pack, not just because you need to fill it in, but also you're going to learn a lot from it. And essentially, if you're doing what it says in there in relation to your products, then you can have confidence that you're going to be doing what you need to do and what the when
you've registered, you put on your registration that you are going to be doing cakes and bakes, should you go back and tell them that you're now going to be including meat-based products in that? Is that like something that you should be telling your local?
Yeah, so it depends, because sometimes on the registration form you don't specify what products you're doing. So I think if originally when you registered, it was very obvious that you were just doing cakes. Yeah. Let's say maybe it was even in the name of your business, like so-and-so's cakes, then it would be a good idea to you wouldn't necessarily have to re-register, but just drop the council an email. Like if you can find the email address for like the food safety team or the environmental health department, and just let them know that you've slightly changed what you're doing.
Okay.
If you're selling, I don't want to confuse things too much at the moment, but if a business is selling meat products to another food business, not to the final consumer, then there could be extra requirements. We probably don't want to go into too much detail now, but all I'll say is if a food business is selling what's called product of animal origin directly to another food business, not to the final consumer, they may need what's called approval. And it's different to food business registration. It's a more detailed form.
Right.
And you're not allowed to start doing it until you actually have received approval from the council.
Okay.
So if someone is doing this, I would suggest a phone call to the local authority to talk it through, explain what they're doing, and then the local authority will be able to say whether that business needs approval or not. It's a little bit of a grey area.
That is interesting.
So just say I had a cake business and I'm going to set up another business which will be selling meat products, I'd have to re-register the new business. And would I have, so I'm waiting for a check for my business now, and would I then have to wait for a separate check for my new business?
If it's a new business, i.e. like if it's a different business name, different limited company, different address, then it would be a separate registration. But if it's just that you've added a couple of other product lines, say meat products, and you're still selling to the final consumer, like with your cakes, then you wouldn't need to do a separate registration. It's like a restaurant that adds like a new menu item or something.
Yeah. But it's so if you had like two businesses under two business names, you have to have two registrations. But if it's still just one business, it's all fine. It's just, you're just adding to it.
Yes.
Okay. Is it my turn?
I think so.
Okay. Should you keep eggs in the fridge?
I get asked this all the time.
So I think the Food Standards Agency advice is yes.
Right.
I know they're not in the supermarket, but that's part of the reason is, one, in the supermarket, it's a consistent temperature, because it can be the fluctuations in temperature that can cause a problem.
And supermarkets are air conditioned and they're all constant.
Yeah.
Marks and Spencer's freezing, but
practically fridge temperature anyway. Then. And I think also it's just the shells are less brittle, I think. So it's kind of, it helps then in the supermarkets because they're less likely to break. But when we get them home, we should store them in the fridge. But I appreciate when you're making cakes, it's better if they're room temperature.
Yeah.
So just bring them out a couple of an hour or so, however long you need before you're going to be baking, just so they can come to room temperature for what you need them for.
Interesting.
Sorry, I've made some notes on that question so I can answer when people ask me. With creams and fresh creams and things like that, what is the shelf life of fillings such as fresh cream and cream cheese frosting? Because say I do a carrot cake and they want cream cheese frosting, it's kind of different from if I was doing a buttercream coating on it. So I always find that a bit confusing.
Okay, because it's cream cheese.
Yeah.
But I think if it's fresh cream, then we need to follow the shelf life on the original product. So let's say the tub of cream says use within 3 days of opening. Then that's the use by date I would apply.
And that needs to be refrigerated, doesn't it? Fresh cream, definitely in the fridge. Yeah.
For some of these other things, I mean, like, for example, the frosting, you're going to be adding like quite a lot of sugar, aren't you? And when we're adding something like sugar, bacteria don't grow as well, or if at all, in those type of products. So...
Because it's interesting, because I was always led to believe that cream cheese frosting had to be put in a fridge because it had cheese in it. Yeah. And then I was working at another bakery. It was like a traditional British bakery, and they were doing carrot cake and they had cream cheese frosting. And I was talking to the baker and I said to him, because we used to leave this out all day, and I'm like, well, why is this not refrigerated? And he's like, well, because of the sugar content is so high, it's offsetting the cheese. I kind of panicked a little bit about it, because my understanding was, no, it had to go in the fridge, But he was like, no, and I don't know whether they had a certain ratio of sugar to cream cheese, or I don't know, but he was very adamant that it was absolutely fine to be kept out all day.
It's difficult, and I think it is kind of like case by case basis. I can't just say, these type of products use within 3 days or 5 days, like it's a blanket rule for everything. So personally, and this is kind of me just thinking off the top of my head now as well, if it is cream cheese, I would be inclined to say keep it in the fridge if it's a cream cheese frosting. Buttercream, probably not. But when it comes to shelf life, I think Fresh cream, as I said, is easy because you haven't changed it. It's just whatever it says.
On my allergy sheets that I send out the door, I always say best eaten within 5 days.
Yeah.
And that, because I think any longer than that, I'm covering myself.
Yeah, I think things like that, I would probably be inclined to say sort of maximum 5 days. And I suppose, I mean, we need to think about the quality of the cake as well, I guess, because after 5 days, it's going to be dry as well.
Yeah,
Well,
dry or
especially
crumb.
cupcakes, definitely. I say 3 days on cupcakes.
Yeah,
But 5 days on my cakes.
Actually, that's something that I've noticed quite a few people asking about best before dates and what they should do best before. And I've had a few people ask me, and I'm always like, well, do you want to eat a cake more than 5 days old?
Yeah.
And I know it's not a use by necessarily because it's cake, but it's like, I wouldn't want to eat it much past that anyway.
I always advise them they can freeze it as well.
Yes, of course.
Which is another question we got further on down the line.
Which is another question we've got. Right. Okay. So our next question: how long should you stay out of the kitchen? Oh, this is a nice one. How long should you stay out of the kitchen after being sick with diarrhea and vomiting?
Okay, that's a really great question. So basically, from when the symptoms have stopped, we need to make sure we're free of any symptoms for 48 hours.
Right.
So from when the symptoms stop, then wait 48 hours before returning to work with food. And the reason for this is even once the symptoms have stopped, we can still be excreting the bacteria for a couple of days afterwards.
I think that's word of the day.
Excreting.
Excreting.
Because obviously, a lot of our listeners are home bakers. What if you haven't got it, but say your child has been sick? Would you recommend that they don't bake for a few days as well? Well, not the children, obviously the mums.
Yeah. To be honest, I would probably recommend not to. Because especially, if it's a parent, they're going to be, I assume, like assisting the child. So there's a chance that they could come down with it anyway. So
just get it out of your house before you start baking again.
That would be my advice.
Okay.
We've seen this question a few times on Facebook and intrigued as everyone has different answers. Can you refreeze cake if it's already been frozen before? Some people say their EHO says it's okay and others say it's not. So I would never refreeze frozen cake.
Would you? Is that because you just never refreeze anything?
That's just it, like how I would be, how I was taught when I was at college.
I was taught to never refreeze
refreeze
and fish and things like that. But I remember my mum refreezing bread. I remember her doing that, and I'm still here. But I don't know whether that was a good thing or not. I don't know.
Yeah, Sammy, is there a reason that you wouldn't refreeze cake?
If it's been frozen before, I've never ever heard of. I've always been taught never refreeze anything that's already been frozen. So I didn't even doubt it, question it.
Yeah. So I think in terms of cake, I would see this as more of a quality thing. Like I think if you're defrosting and refreezing, freezing dries food out anyway. And obviously as the food freezes, the ice crystals form. It affects the structure slightly of the food. Then we're defrosting it and then we're freezing it again and more ice crystals are forming. The cake's likely to dry out. The texture is going to be affected even very slightly. So putting food safety aside, I would say from a quality perspective, I just don't think the cake is going to be as good quality. You guys might have. I suppose,
and also the thing is that when you freeze cake, if it's already a 2-day-old cake, and then you freeze it, you're freezing it at 2 days old already. Do you know what I mean? So therefore, you've already lost some of that quality on it.
Yeah,
I think there was. I saw one particular lady, and she said, and there's a few people that came back and went, our EHO says it's safe, but I wouldn't give it to my customer. My family eats it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. if that was me, like I'd made a cake and I thought it was freezing, I would eat it. So like food, I agree with that EHO.
Right.
If it's just like a normal cake, low risk, then food safety wise, in my opinion, it'd be absolutely fine.
Right.
Like, I would eat it, but quality wise,
Wouldn't necessarily sell it.
I wouldn't. If I made cakes to sell, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't sell that to my customers because I just quality wise, I don't think it's going to be as good quality.
Perfect. That's a good answer. Thank you for that.
Yes.
And just to clarify, to be fair, if I'd made cake, there wouldn't be any left for me to freeze on.
It's not going in the freezer anyway. Do you legally have to display your food hygiene rating?
Only in Wales.
Okay.
Good, because I haven't got one. I've lost the sticker along the way. So good.
Probably still stuck on a window somewhere. That you moved
Yes,
from.
probably.
So in Scotland, England, and Northern Ireland, you don't have to display. I know there was a bit of a thing, wasn't there, a couple of months ago, where some shops was it in London, were displaying old stickers.
Yeah.
Is that illegal? I guess it must be.
So potentially, yes, in terms of this falls under more like trading standards rather than environmental health. It could be deemed as being like essentially false advertising or misleading.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on the technical terms because I'm not a trading standards officer.
Yeah.
But when I've worked at councils, I do recall like discussions with trading standards about this. And I think there were some scenarios where like a food business could get fined for displaying the wrong rating. This is potentially maybe if they were knowingly doing it because it's misleading to their customers. And I think this is a big issue at the moment because one, like councils are so short staffed. Have they really got time to going around checking that every food business is displaying the correct and most recent rating?
Yeah.
And then also with the backlog of inspections that we've talked about, some businesses rating could literally just be like 4 or 5 years out of date anyway because they haven't been inspected.
Yeah.
So
because it was even on the London News, and I mean I don't often sit and watch the London News, but I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. And there were people that had like 5 rating, but they had since had an inspection and been a 0, but they'd left their 5 rating up. It's like, you cheeky whatnots.
Yeah. So they could definitely get in trouble for doing that.
Yeah.
Whether they would because councils are so short staffed.
Yeah.
But they definitely.
But I see what you mean. It is more trade. It's more false advertising than actual. Yeah. Because they have had their 0 food hygiene rating, I guess.
I'm going to go off piste here a little bit. When I was on Reddit, and I was looking at an environmental health feed, which was really interesting because this environmental health officer said, "Just throw it at me, ask me all your questions." A lot of them were ridiculous. But one of the most common questions was, "How do I train to be an environmental health officer?" Which I thought was really interesting. So how do you train to be an environmental health officer? Do you think it's a good job to go for at the moment because there are there's so many shortages?
Yeah, I actually get asked this question quite a lot. So when I qualified, which was back in 2011, so the route has changed a bit since then. So I suppose I can say the route that I took to qualify, and then I can tell people where to look if they want to find out like the most up-to-date information on how you qualify now. So when I qualified, so you either did a degree or a BSc or an MSc in environmental health. So I did an MSc in environmental health at Birmingham University. Then you had to do like a series of, so it's like a practical food inspection, I think it was called. And I remember doing it at the wholesale market in Birmingham. So you have to do like identification of like fish, meat, like different cuts of meat, things like that, exotic like fruits and vegetables, etc., etc. I can't remember half of it, to be honest. And then you got a placement with, back then it was with a council, but I think now you can get a placement within the private sector.
Right.
And then there was like a portfolio that you had to complete of all these different reports to demonstrate competency in different areas. So this wasn't just food safety, it's health and safety, environmental protection, housing, public health. And in total, it was like 86 reports.
Wow.
I remember hauling this massive like cardboard box, like 5 lever arch files into London to drop it off because I didn't want to risk posting it because you have to put all the evidence and stuff in with it as well. So that gets marked. Then you do a professional exam, which is like a written exam, which is like scenario based. And then a professional interview, which is like a panel, I think like 3 people on the panel. And you get questioned on scenarios and how you deal with them. And then you eventually qualify. So I think it's similar now.
It's a long process. I mean, I understand it's got to be a long process, but that's a long process, isn't it?
I didn't realise it was so in-depth.
Honestly, it was like a really long process. I think the amount of reports might be a bit less now. And as I said, I think you can do some of this within the private sector now.
Right.
So if anyone's interested, look on the Chartered Institute of Environmental Health, CIH. Maybe just Google CIH, like how to become an environmental health practitioner or environmental health officer. And then they should have like all of the current information on their website because it changes all the time, to be honest.
I understand though why the councils are so short staffed, because that's you have to really want it to get there, don't you?
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, how much you can then go on to earn in accounts. The problem is, in my understanding, is there's not that many young people coming through into the profession. There's just not as many studying at university and so on, because the amount of years you've got to study, and obviously it all costs as well, because you have to pay to do these exams, a portfolio, etc. You could study to be a doctor or another profession that's going to take a similar amount of time, albeit maybe a bit longer, depending on what profession you chose. But you could earn a lot more money than you would earn
the payouts. The payout's not great for the effort, is it?
No, I don't think so. Unless you absolutely love it. Like I've always just been passionate about environmental health, specifically food safety. So I think if it's something you're really passionate about, then it's worth it. But otherwise, maybe not.
Hard work. Right, okay. We see a lot of comments about gloves. Oh, and I've had it thrown at me when I've put content out. No gloves. What are your recommendations about wearing gloves?
God, you've got me.
I know it's like the biggest topic in the world, gloves, isn't it?
Yeah, and to be honest, like it is for EHOs as well. Like in that it drives us mad. And it drives me mad, to be honest, because a lot of the time gloves just aren't used properly. So gloves are fine, providing they're used correctly. So gloves are not designed to protect our hands from the food. They're designed to protect the food from us. So we still need to wash our hands just as regularly. We still need to change the gloves after every task. And if people aren't going to do that, then I would rather people didn't wear gloves and just wash their hands regularly after each task, etc. So if you're going to use gloves, they're not a substitute for hand washing. It doesn't mean that your hands can touch everything.
Yeah.
You don't.
And that's the danger, though, isn't it? Is that if you're wearing gloves, you don't feel that your hands are dirty, and that's kind of the danger there.
They're like magic gloves. People think as soon as they're wearing them, they can just touch everything. But,
And I've also gone to take things out of an oven because I thought they're like oven, and they're not.
Did they stick to the shelf? Did they not?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Because you think, I've got something. It's just it's almost like a subconscious thing. You've got something on your hands, you're protected.
Yeah.
I think
and you don't realise removing that mentality and realising they're wearing the gloves to protect the food.
Yeah.
Not to protect their hands. If we're talking about gloves for food preparation, and they they need to be changed after every task, and people still need to wash their hands just as regularly as if they weren't wearing them. And please, don't handle money with wearing gloves either.
Oh my God, I know. So many people do. You see market stall holders, don't you?
I find it so off-putting. That's the point that I like walk away from buying something.
Yeah.
'Cause it's just like...
I suppose it's easier now that a lot of people are using like just contactless payment. It must be so much easier for market stall holders, but
there's even people picking up the card reader with the gloves on. They're still touching, entering the information. Then you're going to hand that to a customer who then types in their PIN.
And it's been held by a billion people. I know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Gloves, yeah, I do have an issue with gloves if they're not used in the right way.
Okay, which probably they're mostly not.
Hopefully that answers that question.
Yes.
So this is the last question we have today, and it's from a listener. So they say, what regulations do I need to follow to sell cakes to staff at work? I work in a school.
Okay, it's going to be exactly the same as would apply for any food business or any cake maker. I mean, they may want to check with the school that they're allowed to do that, but that's not going to be food safety. It's going to be exactly the same if you're selling cakes to anyone, even if it's staff members, they're still members of the public. So register as a food business, and make sure you're trained in food safety.
Insurance,
food safety management systems such as the Safer Food Better Business Pack, and then obviously read through the SFBB pack, fill in the bits that are relevant, and then that's also going to give you a lot of more of an idea of the things that you actually need to do in practice in your business when you're making the cakes as well.
So basically, it doesn't matter whether you're your friends, whether they're your colleagues, whether they're your family. If you're selling cakes, you're a food business.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's it. That's all our questions, Natalie. Thank you so much for your very concise answers. We've learned stuff.
I'm going to update my Safer Food Better Business Pack because I think it might be...
how often do you do that? Is it like I do mine at work every year. But
so when anything changes, needs to be updated. So even if new suppliers or anything, update the suppliers list at the back. So if you add new products, let's say we talked about meat products, update it then. So when anything changes or periodically, so I would recommend once every 12 months. It might say in the pack, I can't remember off the top of my head, if it says more frequently in the pack, then do whatever it says in the pack. But otherwise, I'd say roughly once every 12 months sounds about right, or if anything changes.
Perfect.
If you get
thank you very much. I've learned stuff. I don't know if you have, Sammy, but I have.
I always do.
Eggs. I'm going to put them in the fridge from now on.
Yeah.
Just take them out. An hour or so before to come up to room temperature.
To be honest, my garage is pretty much cold most of the time.
Ice
but I will put them in the fridge.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really great to speak to you both again. I always enjoy our conversations.
It's been lovely to have you back, and we'll keep in touch, and we will definitely get you back on again because it's always educational. Out
your Instagram?
Yes,
so
tell us where we can find you.
Everyone can find you because your videos are brilliant. I love them.
Oh, thank you. So my Instagram is _safety_expert. As I said, my website is www.thesafetyexpert.co.uk. And one thing I didn't actually mention, I don't think I've even really mentioned this on socials yet. I do actually have another course coming out in the new year, probably January, which is literally called in EHO Inspection Ready. So it's literally a course how to get ready for your...
I love that we both got very excited about that.
Well, everyone's terrified, aren't they? I think that's a great idea to put people's minds at rest and what to expect. Wonderful.
Yeah, and I hope the course does just that. But I'll keep you guys updated. It should be live at the start of January, probably mid-January.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you very, very much, and we will see you again soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We didn't record a goodbye for the end of this part of the episode. We are actually going to continue now over on our Patreon. So if you have a membership to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/the Business of Cake Making podcast, you can listen to the end of this podcast, which includes, we have a roundup of what we chatted to about Natalie, and also we have a tip of the week and a product of the week, a top tip and a product of the week. And that's all over on the extended version in a bigger slice that is part of our Patreon membership. But because we were just so excited about recording with Natalie, we forgot to do a goodbye here. So I'm going to just edit Sammy's from the very end and put it in here now.
Bye.